guest today is Kave Bulambo. Kave Bulambo is a founder, TEDx speaker, talent expert, cultural transformation advocate, and community builder. She is the visionary behind BlackInTech Berlin, the first community of people of African descent in tech in Germany, and the founder of Talent Diverse, a business that connects diverse talent to career opportunities with inclusive organizations. She has also worked in several tech companies on the technology recruitment side. Kave is a pioneer on a mission to change the status quo around women and underrepresented groups in tech. She was named as one of the voices of a new era of leaders by the Female Factor in 2024, and in 2025 she was recognized as one of Tagesspiegel's 40 under 40 in Berlin business, highlighting her influence in shaping the future of business and innovation in Berlin. Born in the Congo, raised and educated in Durban, South Africa, and now working in Berlin, Kave says that crossing borders has shaped her perspective around work. She says, "I've crossed borders geographically, socially, professionally, and culturally, navigated different educational systems and different labor markets, and also different institutions between Africa and Europe." Kave says it's not the lack of women or the lack of underrepresented talent that we have in Europe, but the lack of systems to absorb this talent into the labor market. And this is the impetus between the two organizations that she runs. Kave Bulambo, welcome to Speech Bubbles.
Thank you for having me. So happy to be here.
Oh, it's lovely to have you with us today. Let's talk about crossing borders. You've crossed so many. How has that shaped your perspective? And how do you think about underrepresented talent in the labor market?
Well, borders. I was thinking about this question this morning, and I think, first of all, it's been amazing. Well, now that I reflect back, I think it was a good journey. I'm glad it was first African borders. There's very good weather, very friendly people, good food along the ways. But in practice, it really meant that I just became relatable to so many people. It was so easy for me to connect with people irrespective of where they come from or which language they spoke. It actually became an interest for me. So if you told me you are from Tanzania, I'd be like, oh my gosh, we've been there or we passed through there. Like, what are you doing here? Whereas for most people, it's like, oh, like, where is that? Why are you here? And when are you going back? So I think that that ability to connect easily with people is one of the things that crossing borders gave me, and I appreciate it right now. Back in the days, it was quite hard to say, oh yeah, I am a refugee or, I'm a foreigner, because it's not such a prestigious identity to have. But looking back, it is rich, actually. It's wealth, cultural wealth, I would say.
Yeah, it really is. And, I think it's important to acknowledge that the part of South Africa where you spend quite a lot of your time, KwaZulu-Natal, is where I also stem from. So that was one of our first connection points, was that we spent a lot of time in KZN. How do you look back on those years?
First of all, I miss the beach.
Me too.
I miss the beach. I miss the people. So Bukavu is my natal city, and Durban is the city that gave me the chance to grow up, become, build my identity as a young woman and professional identity as well. It's very central to the work I started to do in building up my career portfolio. Even the advocacy work that I started was also in Durban, KwaZulu-Natal, with refugee women. And I think back then, I just responded to the context that I was in. I couldn't really see what would come, in the next 5 years. But I think it is the foundation of who I am today as a professional woman and as an advocate, that Durban, KwaZulu-Natal gave me those muscles and gave me the foundation. And even the challenges that I was experiencing there, the people around me experiencing in KZN, is what really gives me the confidence right now to also figure out, oh my gosh, I did that in KZN. Like, okay, it's just another context right now in Berlin, but it is the same kind of challenges. And that gives me a little bit of confidence in saying I can also do something here. Sorry.
It's all good. It's all good. We'll cut bits out. It's absolutely fine. So that really speaks to my heart because, you know, where you come from shapes who you are. Mm-hmm. And I've often said this, but I grew up as somebody who was unfairly privileged by apartheid. I grew up during the apartheid years in South Africa. And I grew up in a family where we sat around the dinner table and talked about why apartheid was wrong. And I saw the terrible leaders who led our country at that time. And that's fueled me ever since, fueled a deep interest in politics, fueled my passion for justice. So I can really appreciate your point that where you come from really shapes, you know, who you are and what you become. Yeah. Kave, I'm interested to know what brought you to Berlin or what brought you to Germany.
Yeah, so I had completed my bachelor's and I was going through my honors degree in gender studies. And by then I was already running Women Across Borders and doing charitable work, community work. And I just felt like I needed to improve my educational experience. I wanted to work in government and I wanted to do public policy or get into public administration because I realized that as much as I'm doing community work, the policies that are being passed actually have more influence and impacts on my life and the lives of the women that we're helping. So how about we go in and meet the policymakers at the same table and see if maybe writing policies that are inclusive, having people like myself and others who have more of an inclusive mindset in those rooms and on those tables, if we could actually pass better policies. That's what was my mindset back then. And so I started just to look at opportunities about studying a master's degree in public administration. And I had various countries in mind. I had the UK, Canada, the US. Germany was like, yeah, it just happened. And so I was subscribed to a newsletter, a scholarship newsletter. And this one day I just received one with this German scholarship, the DAG scholarship, and it fit all the criteria of what I was looking for. And I just submitted an application and the rest is history.
Oh, that's wonderful. So where did you end up studying in Germany?
So I first moved to Berlin and I studied German for 6 months in Berlin. And after completing the German course, then I moved to Potsdam at the University of Potsdam. That's where I did my master's degree. And I still live in Potsdam until today.
Oh, that's a magical story. I love that connection that you have to Germany, which is similar to the one that I have. So I really want to dig into the point that you make about systems, because you say we don't lack underrepresented talent. We don't lack women and people from underrepresented minorities who are able to step up and do jobs, but we do lack the systems for getting them into jobs. How are you seeing systemic change now in 2026? Where are we at right now?
Oh, we're back pre-2019, which is the COVID times. But there's also a little bit of stride. So what I'm seeing right now in the market is that a lot of companies are now dedicating resources internally. So before there will be a lot of resources dedicated external outreach to try and create the pipeline and promote more diversity externally. But in 2026, what I'm hearing from companies like, yeah, we want to invest in the diverse talents that are inside our companies. Because of, the economy is not doing well right now. And that's totally fine. And so this puts the underrepresented talent that is out of work in a situation where you you are reliant to organizations such as us to basically give you insight on how to approach the labor market. You wouldn't then know which company has a diversity program because everything is internal. Because your target audience is your employees, and you don't have an external outreach, diversity, and inclusion strategy. So that means you're not looking forward to reaching out to people who are not yet in your company, which is like, it is a disadvantage because that's great work, and you do need to tell the time that's not yet there what you're doing, but they prefer to keep it all inside right now. Yeah, and the reality is that what I've been saying to some of my friends is that a lot of the time there's criticism for the US and they're quite vocal about defunding DEI. In Europe, we don't loudly claim that we are defunding DEI, but we are quietly defunding DEI in Europe, and it's quite visible. And yeah, it's survival for underrepresented talent. In terms of systems, so let's think about, for example, just like promotion. Yeah, we companies have a system on how to promote all employees in their organization, and they have a structure such as employee feedback. You have a feedback review or reviews that you do every 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, and based on that, then you are promoted into leadership and into management. But most companies don't have these systems, or early stage startups or high scaling startups as well don't have these systems in place. And so what you have now is just a lot of people floating, not knowing where to go, what to do, or expecting that management knows, or somebody on team should kind of know how I will get promoted into management. And that limbo is the lack of system, is the lack of infrastructure. And if you're a person who works hard and has that expectation, you eventually will leave because nothing will eventually happen.
Yeah.
Or if it is happening ambiguously, without a structure, which then creates a space where people are being promoted because of who they know. There's no accountability. And so when we look at systems, whatever challenge we want to address internally in organizations, we have to create the structures that allow us to say, yes, we actually are committed, we are interested in empowering our employees, and this is how we do it.
Yeah, that's so interesting. What I'm hearing is the limbo that you describe inside companies is a complete match to the limbo that underrepresented talent is experiencing outside companies. Yes. So that the systemic gap is internal and it's external.
External, yeah.
And what you're trying to do with Talent Diverse is to build a bridge over or through the limbo. So could you talk a little bit about the work you do in your company?
Yeah, so with Talent Diverse, most of the work we've done has been commissioned by different companies. I really appreciate those companies that are invested in building really diverse teams, solid foundations for women and underrepresented talent inside their organizations. And this looks like, earlier it was mostly training. So it will be training on unconscious bias, hiring, inclusive hiring processes, recruitment flow, like from end to end, reviewing that and see where the loops are and how they can be closed. And then overall just company conversations about what does diversity and inclusion mean within that specific organizations. At this stage, there are companies that I work with that already have dedicated internal leadership programs for women. And they run them for a cycle, so 6 months or a year. and they have different cohorts internally. And these companies invite us and my team to come and teach a certain session, either on strategic leadership, communication, personal branding, to these cohorts. So this cohort will graduate, will give feedback, and then a new cohort will come through into the leadership training and development. But this is mostly with established companies. This doesn't happen with early stage startups and scaling startups. But it is a model. For early stage startups, they always feel like, yeah, we're not yet ready for that. But I always say that the earlier you start, the better. If you can start with 2-3 women, you're already on your way.
Yeah, that makes so much sense, and I'm so glad you're teaching personal branding as part of the educational cohort. Because, as you well know, reputation equity is the core for me, both of we need new leaders and this podcast, Speech Bubbles. So, for me, that whole idea of you own your own story, you own your own narrative, you get to choose how it's told. Because we have the social media platforms now, people have the freedom to not only show up, but be the master of their narrative. And I'm sure that matches to some of the work that you're doing internally with your customers.
Absolutely. And a lot of companies they already understand now that their employees are their biggest advocates. And so the better positive the experience is, the better is their brand positioning outside. But I can also say that a good positioning or a seemingly positive positioning outside does not mean that internally there aren't challenges, which is to say that organizations are also living and breathing beings or ecosystems, and there aren't perfect ones out there, but it's good to identify the toxic ones so you can leave. But to walk into one and expecting everything to be 100% plus is it's not possible.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And talk to me about BlackInTech Berlin. What is the function of that second organization that you founded?
Yeah, BlackInTech is a social impact organization. And primarily started it to just figure out who is the other Black person working in tech. Where are they? What are they doing? Back then in 2019, majority of the Black professionals who were there, it was like you probably were the only one in your company. Now there is a lot more Black presence here in Berlin and Germany. And so that's really nice to see. But back then in 2019, it was like very unheard of. And so the work started in 2019 for community and just visibility and finding out who else is there so we can share experiences. But over the years, especially after COVID and the Black Lives Matter movement kicking off in the US, you could actually see like the racial disparity is very stark, not only in the US, but also across the world. And so there was a lot of awareness from companies and organizations and institutions, even here in Germany, who were like, oh my gosh, we didn't know. Now we know and we want to do better. And so we have been there again in the middle to kind of build again this bridge that connect Black talent to organizations that want to embrace this type of diversity internally, but also embrace that there is this community and they want to support it in terms of like settling down in Germany and Europe, as majority of the members are not from Germany, weren't born here. So we're all moving from different countries, different cities. And so everything is new. And the first place people come is BlackInTech, or the first recommendation everybody gets is that, oh, go to BlackInTech Berlin, for information. And so we've become now a platform. We have thousands of members, and daily conversations are like, oh yeah, I need a flat, or I need a a job, I'm having an interview, who can help me? Or my hair is a mess, where can I get somebody to do my hair? Or I'm looking for a doctor who understands, this particular challenge that I'm having right now, health wise. And so it's really like this resource, like this database, but actually of humans that have moved to Berlin and are making Germany their home. So we've evolved from just meeting up and conversing. We now have a platform where you can access mentorship, you can find mentors, you can be found by companies that are hiring. So we've embedded the technology in there as well, because Black people make up only about 5% of the working workforce in the tech industry. So it's very limited. And these numbers are from the UK. In Germany, we are collecting this data. So hopefully we will have this information as well. But just in general, Black people make up 1% of German population. So it's very like teeny tiny population group. And we hope that with Black in Tech, we can create a space where conversations about being Black is easy to be had, but we can also provide recommendations to policies, to organizations that want to make improvements in this area, so that Black people and Africans that are moving to Europe can actually enjoy the experience.
Sounds like you're building and have built a beautiful community. And what's coming up for me as you're talking, and it goes back to where we were at the start about crossing borders, is that you are a natural bridge builder.
Yeah, thank you.
Which is so lovely. So Kave, talk to me about you and your leadership. I mean, you've been in leadership roles, you run 2 different organizations. How do you think of your own leadership and leadership style?
Yeah, I've run quite a few leadership sessions, and my style is definitely visionary and charismatic. But now we need to add a little bit more strategic, okay? Like a little bit of power into it. I think, as I mentioned earlier, every time I walk into a context, I understand the challenges around that context and then have a vision of how it could be better. And so once I put the vision out there, organically people tend to identify with that vision and say, hey, I want to be part of this vision. I identify the challenge as well, and I would love to be part of the people that want to either eradicate the challenge or provide the opportunity within that the vision or that context. So visions do come to me very naturally. And being charismatic is also something that come very natural because of the many places I've lived, the many people I've come to interact with, and I'm just the people's person, and so that also give people a bit of they can connect with me very easily, and they don't feel this pushback or this authoritarian type of leadership. And then from there, we start building together.
That is so lovely. So what's tied very closely to leadership and also to being a business founder is reputation, which is my topic of passion. Mm-hmm. How do you think about your own reputation?
I was also thinking about that question earlier today. And for me, so I came in contact with reputation working in employer branding. So basically, with employer branding, we are building a reputation of a company. And before that, I hadn't thought about my own personal brand or my own personal reputation, but I saw how much investment companies were making into it and how it actually helped the company advance some of its goals, which was actually attracting the right people. And from that then on, I started now reversing it to myself personally and also teaching other people that your reputation, your brand can put you in a position where you're clearly articulating your vision, your values, And because of that, the right people then are attracted to your vision and your values. And together you march towards the vision that you are calling them to journey alongside with you. So there is that part. And so I have a big role in formulating and curating my own reputation and my own branding message. But I've come to separate it from really good looking reputation or brand versus an actual good brand and reputation. Like there is the visible part and there is the doing part. Yeah. And I always make sure that the doing surpasses the outlook. And at the same time, there's also what people say. There is feedback that people say about you, your work, your organizations. And so a lot of people fear what people say, and either you get cold feet and say, oh my gosh, I heard this about my company or my organization. We're just going to freeze until it all comes down. But I always say that there are two sides of the story, and the one you hold is the most credible one. So you always have to continue giving people the chance to get to know you, to get to understand who you are. And until proven otherwise, then you should, change maybe if there are recommendations. And so you can build your reputation strongly, and that's hold strong values, but there's always going to be what other people will say. And it's a competition between those two. But if you stick truly to who you are, your vision, your values, I don't think nothing beats that.
No, nothing beats that. And I love that comparison you made between a good reputation and a good looking reputation. And I think I speak to that in We Need New Leaders, because the words and actions have to meet. So words can be a good looking reputation, yeah. But if the actions don't meet the words, then it's not a good reputation. And I think, so I also say to people exactly as you do, yes, what others say about you is important, but if you always act according to your values, your reputation is safe.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's so powerful. And we're also at the stage where we can own nearly all the signals because of the platforms that are available to us. So how do you put the elements of your reputation into practice?
I just do my work. So I think what's give me the advantage is I've worked also in branding, and I have the educational background around the topic. And so I've done the work for myself too. I've gone through what is my vision, what is my value, which are my channels, who do I want to reach. And so it's quite easy for me to formulate a narrative around my reputation or my brand. And so my advice for others is to figure out first for yourself, what is your mission? What is your vision? What is your value? What do you want to achieve? And then curate a practice of where you want to communicate that, who do you want to reach? And then it becomes quite easy of putting those pieces together.
Yeah, it starts to become natural.
Mm-hmm.
It may feel quite kind of curated and intentional to start, but after a while, it starts to flow very, very naturally.
Absolutely. And it helps you. And what I've seen is that you grow as well and you evolve. So it's not static. It's something that moves as you move. When I was in South Africa, completely different messaging, but you can see that the foundations are not very far off. So when I come here, I thought, oh, what? These are the connecting dot. The same message of diversity, inclusion, social cohesion is just in a different context, but it is the same message. Who do I want to speak to? Oh, the people I spoke to in South Africa were institutions, everyday people, women, same here. So I think you will kind of find a flow and a system to your own reputation as you grow and evolve.
Yeah, that's so true. So, Kave, with your work in diversity and inclusion and my work in reputation, my deep interest is in changing that archetype that we have in our heads. So we sort of, it's almost part of our neuroscience of what a leader is. But you're doing the business of change actively every single day. What do you think we can do both collectively and individually to change that old archetype and replace it with a more inclusive one?
In terms of leading, in terms of deciding who is a leader when they're a leader? Yeah, this is very important. I organically walked into this leadership journey. Nobody gave it to me. There weren't applications form for it. And so it's been a journey of discovery, of understanding. Oh, I am leading. Oh my gosh, I have a company. Oh, wow. Okay. So that is kind of organic, and that's very, it's a path many people have been on in terms of a leadership journey. But there are also other archetypes where you are chosen, you are picked within an organization, in a family setup, in a community setup. You are picked as a mayor, you're picked as a representative, and that's also okay. And I think as women or as just people, we have to be open to our own specific or personal journey of leadership. And if nothing has presented itself in front of you, maybe just like question yourself, do you want it? Do you want it? Because being a leader is a huge responsibility. It means that you're carrying people behind you towards a particular vision. And that comes with a lot of responsibility, a lot of requirements, not only for yourself, but legally as well. So it is quite a lot. And even internally within the company, when you're a manager, your team expects answers. You have to be able to manage conflict, between your team members. You can't just say, well, figure it out, but there are expectations. And so if it is something that you aspire, you have to really ask yourself, do I want it? And if you want it, then please go for it.
Oh, that's so lovely. Thank you. Now we get to the 3 questions I always ask. Give us a book recommendation.
So I'm reading an amazing book. I actually just left it on my shelf, and it's called Hidden Potential by Adam Grant. I don't know if you heard about it. And my goodness, I've never read a book where I'm just like taking notes as I'm reading the book and highlighting. And what he actually talks about is a lot of the people that we disqualify as not as people who wouldn't be the greatest are the people who actually turn out to be the greatest leaders of our times. And so he's trying to help all the readers understand that you might not show the characters right now, but they are somewhere there. And what you need to do is to figure out, to bring your potential out, and reframe it unlike what we normally, the models that we use to define, characterize leaders. Like he turns the whole script around and say, we have to do it the other way around. Go to places where we underestimate, where we expect nothing to come from. That's most likely where the change makers are.
That's so beautiful. And it goes to this idea of breaking the old archetype as well. Yeah. So the archetype, it's not necessarily the person at the top of the hierarchy. It's not necessarily the loudest person in the room. It's not necessarily the person who seems to have all the social capital. That in fact, leaders can come from the opposite of all those things. Sounds like a fascinating book.
It is. I'd recommend it 100%.
Lovely. And you work all the time with leaders and people from diverse backgrounds and underrepresented minorities. If those folks are looking at leadership roles and have a burning ambition, what 3 tips would you give them?
Go for it if you want it. As I've mentioned earlier, plan your way towards it. You need to have a strategy. And It is a great thing to assume more responsibility because you can create change. If you are given the space, you can actually create change in people's lives and also yourself. It's amazing to look back to see the growth that you can develop within a year to a decade. And it's a beautiful thing, I think.
Yeah, looking back is always powerful, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Kave, and my last question, it's gloomy in northern Germany. It's quite cold at the moment. What's bringing you joy?
Man, I actually love it when we have snow, because I can go with the schlitten, what is the schlitten?
Sledge.
Yeah, I can go with the sledge to pick up my little one and then we can just walk in the park. I think the hard ones are where it's like icy and we're all just falling down. So taking those moments to just walk in the snow with my little one and taking the days slow, I think that's bringing me a little bit of joy right now.
Oh, what a lovely answer. Kave Bulambo, thank you for joining me on Speech Bubbles.
Thank you so much for having me, and it was a great honor and pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.